Good morning. My name is Henley McCracken, and I'm a senior at the Oak Ridge School. Next year, I'll be attending TCU Nursing School, and today I'll be sharing a reading from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, verses 7 through 13. Ask, and it will be given to you. Search, you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened. For everyone who asks receives, and everyone who searches finds, and for everyone who knocks, the door will be open. Is there anyone among you, if your child asks for bread, would give a stone? Or if the child asks for fish, would give a snake? If you, then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good things to those who ask him? And everything do to others as you would have them do to you. For this is the law and the prophets. Enter through the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the road is easy, that leads to destruction, and there are many who take it. For the gate is narrow and the road is hard that leads to life, and there are few who find it. The word of the God for the people of God.
Good morning. For those of me who don't know me, my name is Eric Self. I have been a member of UCC since I was born, and this year I am graduating high school. I plan to join my sister, and I will become a boomer. There we go. We got some couple, okay. Of OU. If you would like to boo OU, please wait till the end of my sermon, then it's your time to shine. This Youth Sunday's theme is faithfully finding your way. Finding your way in today's world can be hard. There are so many different obstacles in our path to finding faith. As humans, we divide ourselves according to religion, races, languages, political views, and so much more. So how do we as Christians faithfully find our way? You can have faith in a lot of things, but by faith I'm referring to a path to God, and throughout time there have been many answers. Historically, some of these different paths to faith include creating myths, such as the creation story in Genesis, and passing down a tradition like communion. But through my life, there are two guiding principles that resonate with me. First, Matthew 7:13 through 14 states, "Enter through the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the road is easy that leads to destruction, and there are many who take it. For the gate is narrow and the road is hard that leads to life, and there are few who find it." Second, the Didache states, "There are two ways, one of life and one of death, and there is a great difference between these two ways." For those who don't attend a small Christian school like me, the Didache is an ancient text from the 4th century that deals with morals, ethics, church practices, and the way to live your life. These texts resonate with me because both Matthew 7 and the Didache provide me clear direction. You can either walk with God or away from God. Walking with God means that we follow the golden rule, which states, treat others the way you want to be treated. I think that we can all agree that our city, our country, and our world needs this right now. Some of you may be asking, how is that walking with God? If we follow the golden rule, then we will fulfill Christ's greatest commandment to love your neighbor. And we can also agree that the way of life will not be easy and many obstacles will stand in your path down the road. However, when we diverge from God and head towards death, we refuse to follow his commandment. The Didache says the path of death is the way of persecutors of good people, of hating truth, loving a lie, being on alert for not what is good, but what is destructive. Everyone is and has been tempted to separate from God. I myself am tempted to follow the path of death every day through technology, distractions, people, and so much more. And every day, I and so many other people choose to walk towards evil and away from God. It is here at the crossroads that we must ask ourselves again, how do we faithfully find our way? The answer may be simple, as we want to follow God, but the action of carrying this out is not. We have to follow the narrow road, seeking God every day by loving our neighbor. We are not going to be perfect, but if we try to follow the golden rule, we choose to live, and by doing so, we will faithfully find our way. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Emily Garcia, and I'm a freshman at All Saints. I'm thrilled to be up here on this beautiful Sunday morning and share my story about faithfully finding my way. Faithfully finding your way. What does that mean? These past few weeks, I have thought a lot about that and how God has helped me in every aspect of my life. Well, it turns out it was a prayer that I had for quite a long time. The prayer and dream that I had was that one day I'd be so involved in the church and meet these wonderful people who now I can call my best friends, that I can share everything with and who will bring me closer to God in ways that I've only dreamed about. It all started on a normal Sunday at 10:10. There was an announcement at the end of the service about disciples class, the class that teaches you what it means to be baptized. I remember turning to my mom and saying, "Hey, I really want to do that." So I signed up a few weeks later, and then was the first class. I walked in with my twin sister, not knowing a single soul, except for Landry McDonald, who I met a few weeks prior in Boarstead. She welcomed us in with open arms and introduced us to everyone. Little did I know that the next 5 months of this class, I would meet my new best friends, who now I can't imagine my life without. Now, where does Faithfully Finding Your Way come in? In this class, my prayer and dream was answered. I found people who start my week off in the best way possible, and I never want to not be around. That is when I realized baptism day was just around the corner. I was so excited to get baptized because I was committed to not only my faith, to this church, but it was a new refreshment of life and a breath of new air. It was a few days later when I became sad because when would I see these amazing girls? On the night before our disciples class retreat, we all had one big sleepover at my house. It was so fun because as we were going to bed, I became sad because this was it, our last hurrah. Well, that's when they told me about youth group. I was so excited because this was half of my dream. It was to be involved. Okay, great, let's give it a try. So I went that next Sunday night and never have regretted spending 2 hours playing games, spending time with my best friends, and reading our devotion after our night of high-low buffalo and lots of laughter. For devotional time, we read a piece of scripture from the Bible, and after someone reads it, we analyze it. That's when my relationship with God grew more than it already had. Now, it wasn't just me hearing these scriptures every Sunday. There were other people's wheels turning and hearing the same scriptures that we talked about. 9 times out of 10, someone would say something that I haven't even thought of. In school, I'm always going to raise my hand for group work over doing it by myself any day, not because it might be easier, but because I love to hear other people's opinions, which can be a blessing and a curse. Like every Sunday during devotional time, hearing people's opinions and perspectives have helped me grow with God in more ways than I can imagine. Knowing that I have never gotten a question wrong, and that certain feeling of joy because I answered the question and shared my thoughts, and the teacher did not say, "Close, but," or "You're on the right track." The truth is, when is there ever one right solution, other than in school? The good thing is, you only really need to know the answer in school subjects, not in youth group, not in sports, and not in life. But the good thing is, God does know the answer. God knows the answer to everything. And to me, that is crazy to think about. I mean, He knows what the rest of my life will hold for me, and as much as I wish He could sit at the end of my bed and tell me everything and give me all the answers to why a certain thing happened or why someone has to die or why I'm struggling, He just can't. But that's one of the good things about growing my relationship with God and faithfully finding my way through life with no answers, because God is always in our corner, guiding us to the right answer, or even if we make mistakes, God can still teach us that mistake. I might not know all the answers, but following God and our faith can help us find them. If I could sit down at the edge of my bed when I was 10 or 11 and tell myself, now I would be involved with the UCC Instagram and making Instagram reels with one of my many new best friends here at UCC, aka Bernie, and plan middle school lock-ins and winter retreats, younger me would have flipped out and just wished to be 15 already. Over these past few years, UCC has guided me through my faith in such a unique way with the youth group structure that is like Sunday school with your best friends, dinner, and games. If I were to summarize this all in a few words, I would say that by asking, searching, and knocking for God's presence and unconditional love, whether it's a dream, prayer, or conversation, do it. Take the leap of faith, walk through the doors of the energetic youth room, because you never know what amazing things can happen. Thank you.
Faithfully Finding Your Way. Hi, for those of you who don't already know me, my name is Carter Mooney. I'm a senior at Southwest Christian School, and my college is still undecided. I've been going to UCC all my life, and it means so much to me that I am still a part of this amazing community today. Have any of you ever heard of that one game at carnivals or arcades called Whack-A-Mole, where you have to try and hit the gophers while they're up out of the machine? In a way, this is a fun, difficult game for many people, but in another way, this game is very comparable to my faith for a while. A lot of people make the comparison to faith or just to life in general of being a roller coaster with a lot of ups and downs. But I feel, as for my faith and possibly even yours, that the Gopher Arcade game is more accurate due to the fact of the ins and outs of my faith. Whenever I'd be doing good, I'd be more active in my Bible and doing more good in the world. And whenever I let myself slip, something in my life would slip a little for me too, where I'd become different. Which, by the way, this all sounds so simple to think, but to consistently do is a very different story. And I'm not saying any of this today to say that I'm perfect in my faith now, because I have recognized this pattern I have, but to share some of the ways that God has shown up in my life and how sometimes taking a step back to realize and see what all God can do for you when you put him first and put your relationship with him above all else. My parents have played a major role in my faith journey and in shaping me to become the person I am today. They helped me move to SCS 2 years ago, which has been amazing for my faith. It's a Christian-based school that has helped me learn more about myself and my faith, others in my faith, and other faiths in general, while providing me with some of my closest friends who help me in my faith journey every single day. My parents in this amazing church have also provided me with the chance to go to Disciples Crossing Church Camp from a very young age. Disciples Crossing is a place I want to go every weekend during the school year, and for most of the summer if I could. It has brought me closer to God, brought me some of my best friends, and has helped me better myself as a leader and a person. Through the songs we sing, the free time messing around we do, and the chapels we all learn so much from, everything feels like it was perfectly made by God. Oh, and you can't forget all the late night talks lying in the ant-filled grass with some of my closest friends just talking about life and doing Bible studies. Because of this amazing church camp and my peers in Disciples of Christ denomination, me and a few others, including Campbell, have been selected to be a part of something even bigger than just being a camper and being impacted by camp. Being in RYMC, we get to plan all the camps, including a specific one for just Christian leadership. We get to help impact others at camp and grow in our Christian leadership skills at the same time. Being in RYMC and a senior this year has truly shifted my view upon camp and my feelings towards it. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely still love and get so giddy thinking about going to camp to better myself. But I often catch myself now getting more excited for the other campers to see what we have planned for them and for them to grow in their own individual faiths and as leaders. So to wrap things up, I would still say that my faith journey is like the Gopher arcade game, but ultimately, with God, we will always win all the prizes, and to just stay consistent in your values and through God's vision for you. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I have the honor of standing up here and sharing a little bit of my faith journey. And as I go along, I hope that I tell my story, that you can connect with it in some way, and we can all be here together in this moment. But before I go on, it might be helpful for you all to know who I am. My name is Caroline Byrne, and I'm a 9th grader at Pascal High School. I've been blessed to grow up with this community since preschool. Today, I want to talk about a feeling that many of us struggle with, and how I navigated through it. Throughout most of middle school, I dealt with severe anxiety, which later spiraled to depression. Even at such a young age, everything just felt so overwhelming, and I started to shut people out, friends, the church, everything. I thought if I just kind of disappeared for a while and kept quiet, maybe I could escape the chaos and come back to a normal life. But as many of us know, running from our problems rarely leads to resolution. For me, my struggle was starting to be the need and control. I felt the need to know everything about my day ahead of time, which caused me to enjoy being alone because I knew nothing could get out of my reach. Dealing with depression brought a lot of negative thoughts about God, and I began to question God's plan for me and why I felt the way I did. I grew up to be very angry at God, and I think I held on to that anger so much that it became a distance between us. One day, I heard the phrase, trust in God's plan, and something clicked. Maybe those people were onto something. So I decided to open my Bible after a long time, feeling a little overwhelmed by its size, which I learned is a very common feeling that many of us still struggle with today. Before I opened my Bible, I prayed for guidance, asking God's voice to speak through me through his words. I felt like I heard a voice nudging me to turn to Psalms 55. I remember thinking, there's 55 chapters? Yet, as I flipped, there it was, Psalms 55. That's when a wave of emotions hit, something I still struggle to pinpoint today. It felt warm and new, something I will never forget. As I started reading, I knew God was right there with me. I felt God's presence for the first time in a while. It was exactly what I needed to hear, and I felt so relieved. Looking back, while I was going through that part of my life, it really felt like a nightmare. Now, the more I think about it, I realize even though it was scary and difficult, it was actually one of my biggest blessings. I was able to learn so much about myself and about God's ways, the ways God has shown up and cared for me. Is my anxiety and depression gone? Not exactly, but it's much easier to handle now with God by my side. I still fight those feelings, but it's so comforting to know I can have trust in Him. A passage in Scripture that most of us are familiar with is Ask, Search, Knock. It really captures a part of my story that I hope you all can learn and understand. Let's unpack verse 8. For everyone who asks receives, and everyone who searches finds, and for everyone who knocks, the door will be opened. The only reason I wasn't receiving direction at the time was because I was leaning on my own understanding, and I liked having control of most things, and giving up that control to Him didn't make the most sense to me at that moment. But in verse 8, my problem wasn't receiving it. It was simply just laying aside my pride. But my thought process was, since God's help didn't come to me at the exact moment I asked for it, my life is already preset, and I just needed to wait and let His timing prevail. Verse 11 is another verse that really speaks to me. It says, If then who are evil know how to give good gifts to those children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good things to those who ask Him? On earth there are so many temporary gifts that act as a solution for the things we suffer from on earth, like anxiety and depression, in my case. Once I learned that these things were only a temporary gift or relief, it made me realize that the only gift that is forever eternal is the love and grace that comes from Jesus. These earthly gifts don't compare to any of the gifts that God has for us waiting in heaven. As mentioned in verse 11, how much more will our Father in heaven give good things to those who ask Him? I see this verse as God inviting us to trust in Him completely, to believe that God's wisdom surpasses our own. You can lay aside all the distractions and lay aside what you think you know and dive into the real, pure truth. The world is full of distractions, and it can feel heavy, like right now. In Jesus, we are invited to take a step back, ask God to show us the way, and walk on the path that leads to eternal life. A question I have for you all is, what are things that are holding you back from God taking full control? My problem was for a long time not thinking that way. I couldn't let him have that. Not sure why, and sometimes it's still difficult not to want to have everything planned out. But it's also quite comforting, knowing that God has a plan for me. Whatever I do, He already has planned. I think there's something really special about that. When I let go of that control, I get to worry less about what's next. What's tomorrow going to look like? I'm not sure, but I'm perfectly okay with that. Depression can look different for everyone, and I bet everyone here knows someone who has or is dealing with it. And maybe it's you. If it is you, I hope you can look at me as a person who's just a teenager and find hope in knowing that you can get through it. It's a temporary feeling. When you turn to God, it's a permanent change and a feeling of peace.
Good morning. My name is Campbell McDonald, and I'm a senior at Burleson Centennial High School. For college, I'm still undecided between the University of Arkansas and that amazing campus across the street, TCU. Still waiting on them to give me money. When I was coming up with this mini sermon, I had a ton of questions, the main one being, where do I start? There were so many things I could talk about in a 5 to 10 minute span. But now, being a son of a PK and a grandson of a preacher, a 5 to 10 minute sermon isn't ideal because we love to run our mouths. However, when I was thinking about what to talk about, while also following the theme of faithfully finding your way, I felt telling my personal story would be the best example of this. Now, during CYLS camp this past summer, which is a leadership camp in our region, the Christian Church of the Southwest Tri-Area holds every year at one of 3 camps, our home camp, Disciples Crossing in Athens, Texas, being one of them. During the week of CYLS, some of the regionals on the Regional Youth Ministry Council had the chance to give mini sermons in place of keynote one night. A good friend of mine, Ellie Steves, had the chance to give one of these sermons. Now, going into that night, I didn't really bat an eye at it. Because let's be honest, when you hear kids your age are giving mini sermons, your immediate reaction isn't really, ooh, yay, can't wait. No. In fact, mine was the opposite. I immediately thought, geez, when can we get this over with already? But I knew I was there for a reason. I signed up for this leadership camp, so I might as well try. Little did I know how big of an impact Ellie's sermon would have on me. And not just me. I knew a handful of other campers who thought and felt the same way. In Ellie's sermon, she talked about her struggles of depression, anxiety, and family issues and finding her faith through that. Her story really stuck with me as I could personally relate to almost everything she said. Like Ellie, I also struggle with depression and anxiety. But it isn't just the mental illnesses themselves, it's the things that are triggering them. This all started in 4th and 5th grade when I had a major separation anxiety disorder from being away from my parents. Towards the end of every school day, I'd wait for my mom to pick me up, and the more time went by, the more anxious I'd get. Now, over time, it got better, and the separation anxiety slowly stopped. But it was in 7th grade when my mom first sat me down and suggested I go to therapy. When I first heard this, I immediately shut down, thinking something was wrong with me. Because, the only people who go to therapy have something wrong with them. My mother would later go on to convince me that these therapy meetings are tools to get help and to feel better. And looking back at it now, I'm so glad she convinced me, because the biggest mistake I made was thinking I could get through it on my own. It didn't help that it took 3 different counselors in the span of 4 years to finally find the right one for me. This didn't help because going to therapy, you want to debrief and leave feeling better. But with these past counselors, I felt the opposite. I felt judged and I felt looked at differently. But it wasn't just the therapy that led me to where I am today. I've been playing basketball since 4th grade. It's one of the few things that I know that will be there for me no matter what. Going into high school, I made a couple of goals to achieve by the end of high school. At the top of that list of goals was to make the varsity basketball team. As a 5'3.5" scrawny freshman, I looked up to the entire varsity basketball team who took me under their wing. Through my freshman and sophomore year, I always was early to every single practice and one of the last to leave, constantly putting in the blood, sweat, and tears to make my main goal come true. But that dream I envisioned and fought so hard to earn slowly faded once junior year came around. My school's varsity basketball coach got a job offer in Midland, Texas, and took it. This immediately made me question everything. All the hard work I've done the past 2 years didn't matter anymore. With this new coach coming in, I had to work even harder just to make a spot on the team, even if that was on the junior varsity team. So I tried out. I made the team, the junior varsity team. Although this was a major setback, I knew I had 1 more year to make my dream come true of playing varsity basketball. But throughout my junior year, on playing junior varsity, there was a major toxic culture. It got so bad to the point where I was told by my own teammates, "You should just kill yourself, you're a junior on JV." This was the breaking point for me. As someone who has had depression and anxiety, this obviously didn't help at all. It got to the point where I fantasized about dying. I had the mindset that I'd be better off dead than dealing with what was happening, which was the anxiety and depression speaking. It was a major challenge to realize that the past 3 years of tireless workouts and waking up at 5:40 a.m. for practice and trying my all led up to my own teammates telling me to kill myself because I wasn't good enough. Because of this, I sat down and talked to my parents and came to the realization that it was time to hang up the shoes and quit basketball. This is one of, if not the hardest decision I've ever had to make, but it was the right decision. But through all of this negative, with finding my way through therapy and quitting basketball, there was one positive, and that was the Youth Ministry Council, aka YMC. On the Youth Ministry Council, me and my fellow leaders get to plan camps, retreats, and be valuable leaders for the camp. When I made YMC, I was ecstatic. Fighting through all the challenges of everyday life made making YMC finally feel like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. After I quit basketball, I had a bunch of free time, and this allowed me to focus on leadership more. It took me a good while to realize that the title of varsity basketball player didn't mean anything, and that leadership is what I needed all along. A year later, I applied to be on the Regional Youth Ministry Council, aka RYMC. This past November was when I was officially installed to be an RYMC, where I earned the stole I'm currently wearing. To this day, I'm still at RYMC, serving alongside 3 of my closest camp friends, one of them who just preached this morning, Carter Mooney. Through leadership, I have met lifelong friends who I can depend on, and I've gotten closer to God along the way. I'm forever grateful that God sent me a calling to leadership. Through all of the struggle, the pain, the sacrifice, and not believing there was a way out, God showed me there was. So why? Why did I just spend the last 5 to 10 minutes of telling my story to you all? Because I strongly believe that no matter where you are in life, whether you're 90 and falling asleep during the sermon, or 12 and wanting to go get the lunch your parents promised you after church, there is always, and I mean always, a way to faithfully find your way. Thank you.